My wife was texting her lover during dinner, smiling at her phone while I sat across from her like a ghost. I thought catching her red-handed was the worst moment of my life. But when I discovered what her lover was really doing behind the scenes, I realized this wasn't just an affair. It was something far more sinister and dangerous. My name is Jack Sullivan. I'm 44 years old, and I own a local food delivery service here in Springfield. Built it from nothing over the past 12 years, starting with just me and an old Honda Civic, delivering Chinese takeout on weekends. Now I've got 15 drivers, partnerships with 43 restaurants, and enough steady income to provide well for my family. At least, I thought I was providing well. Rachel and I have been married for 18 years. We met at a community college business class, both of us trying to figure out our futures. She was studying marketing. I was learning the basics of running a small business. We clicked immediately. She was smart, ambitious, and had this laugh that could light up a room. When our son Asher came along 2 years after we married, everything felt perfect. The American dream, you know? I worked hard to build something solid for us. Long days, early mornings, weekends spent coordinating deliveries and managing drivers. Rachel handled the marketing side of the business for the first few years, before she moved on to work at a local advertising firm. She said she needed her own career, her own identity beyond being my wife and Asher's mother. I respected that, supported it completely. The delivery business kept growing. We bought a nice house in a decent neighborhood, sent Asher to good schools, took family vacations every summer. I was proud of what we'd built together. Rachel seemed happy too, or at least I thought she was. The first real sign something was off came about 6 months ago. Rachel started working late more often, saying her new account manager Blake Morrison was pushing everyone hard on a big campaign. She'd come home after 9 o'clock, sometimes 10, looking exhausted but also somehow energized. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give me vague answers about client meetings and deadlines. Then there were the text messages. At first, it was just occasional buzzing during dinner or while we watched TV together. Rachel would glance at her phone, sometimes smile slightly, then put it face down. When I asked who was texting, she'd say it was work stuff, or her sister Nicole, or just spam. Nothing suspicious on its own, but the frequency kept increasing. Asher noticed it too. Our 16-year-old son started making jokes about how mom was more interested in her phone than our conversations. I laughed it off at the time, but kids see things adults sometimes miss. They're more observant than we give them credit for. The business was doing better than ever, which should have made everything easier. But instead of feeling closer as a family, we seemed to be drifting apart. Rachel became distant, distracted. Our conversations grew shorter, more superficial. The warmth that had always existed between us started feeling forced, mechanical. I told myself it was just stress. The advertising business could be demanding, and Rachel had always been driven. Maybe she was just going through a rough patch at work. Maybe I was being paranoid. After all, we'd been together for 20 years total. We had history, a family, a life we'd built brick by brick. But deep down, something felt wrong. Call it intuition, call it experience, call it whatever you want. When you've been with someone for 2 decades, you know when they're not being entirely honest with you. The question was whether I had the courage to find out what she was hiding. 3 weeks after I first started noticing Rachel's strange behavior, I decided to do something I'd never done in our 18 years of marriage. I made reservations at Antonio's, the little Italian place where we'd had our first official date. It wasn't exactly a romantic gesture, though. I had a plan. Why Antonio's? Rachel asked when I told her about the reservation. We haven't been there in forever. Exactly, I replied. Thought it might be nice to revisit some memories. She seemed hesitant, which should have been my first red flag. The old Rachel would have been thrilled about a surprise dinner date. This new version of my wife looked almost annoyed by the inconvenience. We got a table in the back corner, the same section where we used to sit when we were young and broke. Rachel ordered the lasagna, her old favorite. I went with the chicken parmesan, trying to keep things light and familiar. For the first 10 minutes, everything felt almost normal. We talked about Asher's upcoming soccer playoffs, my plans to expand the delivery service to the next town over. Then her phone started buzzing. Once, twice, 3 times in less than 30 seconds. Each time, Rachel's hand moved toward the device like she was fighting an addiction. On the 4th buzz, she actually picked it up. Sorry, she said, not looking sorry at all. Just need to check this quickly. I watched her read the message, and something shifted in her face. Not guilt exactly, but a softness I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Her thumb moved rapidly across the screen, typing a response. "Work?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would be a lie. "Blake's having a crisis with the Henderson account," she said, still not meeting my eyes. "You know how these big clients can be." The phone buzzed again immediately. This time, Rachel actually smiled at whatever she was reading. A real smile, the kind that used to be reserved for me and Asher. That's when I knew for certain. My wife was having an affair. "Must be some crisis," I said quietly. Rachel looked up sharply, finally registering the tone in my voice. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I replied. "Just seems like Blake needs a lot of hand-holding these days." She put the phone face down on the table, but her fingers kept drumming nervously next to it. "He's my business partner, Jack. Sometimes work doesn't stop just because we're having dinner." "Right," I said. "Business partner." I leaned forward slightly. "You know, Rachel, I've been thinking about our marriage lately. About trust. About honesty. About what happens when people stop being real with each other." Rachel looked up sharply, a forkful of lasagna halfway to her mouth. Something in my tone made her freeze. "What I've realized," I continued, watching her face, "is that some people can sit across from their husband, texting their lover, and think nobody notices." The words hit her like a physical blow. She gasped, inhaling sharply, and the bite of lasagna went down wrong. She started choking, coughing violently, her face turning red as she struggled to catch her breath. I sat back and watched, making no move to help. The rest of the meal passed in uncomfortable silence. Rachel barely touched her lasagna, too distracted by the phone that kept lighting up with notifications she tried to ignore. I found myself studying her face, looking for traces of the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. When the check came, I paid without comment. As we walked to the car, Rachel finally spoke. "What's wrong with you tonight?" she asked. "You've been acting strange all evening." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Have I? Or have I just been paying attention for the first time in months?" Her face went pale in the parking lot lighting. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I asked. "Because I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, Rachel." We drove home in complete silence, both of us knowing that something fundamental had just shifted between us. The pretending was over. After that disastrous dinner at Antonio's, I knew I needed proof before making any accusations. 20 years of marriage deserved more than suspicion and hurt feelings. If Rachel was cheating, I wanted concrete evidence. If she wasn't, I needed to know that too. The food delivery business had given me connections throughout the city. Drivers, restaurant owners, people who saw everything and remembered faces. I started asking casual questions about Blake Morrison, Rachel's supposed business partner. "Yeah, I know that guy," said Tommy, one of my longest-serving drivers. "Delivers to his apartment complex pretty regular. High-end place over on Maple Street. Always tips decent, but he's got this attitude, you know? Like he's doing you a favor by existing." Blake lived alone in a luxury apartment. That was interesting information to file away. I also reached out to my friend Eric, who ran a small security company. We'd done business together when I needed cameras installed at my delivery warehouse. "I need a favor," I told him over coffee. "Nothing illegal, just some equipment to protect my family." Eric didn't ask too many questions. He set me up with a discreet recording device and showed me how to use it properly. "Just remember," he said, "whatever you find out, make sure you're ready to handle the truth." The next phase of my investigation came together quickly. I started tracking Rachel's schedule more carefully, noting when she claimed to be working late versus when her office lights were actually on. I drove past Blake's apartment building during her supposed overtime hours. Her car was there twice in 1 week. But I needed something definitive, something that would remove all doubt. The opportunity came when Rachel announced another late meeting with Blake. This time, she said they were reviewing campaign materials at his place because the office printer was broken. "Seems like a lot of important meetings happen at his apartment," I observed. "It's just more convenient sometimes," Rachel replied, avoiding eye contact. "Less distractions in the office." After she left, I waited 30 minutes, then drove to Blake's building. Sure enough, Rachel's car was in visitor parking. I positioned myself across the street where I could see the building entrance clearly. What I witnessed over the next 2 hours destroyed any remaining hope I had for my marriage. Rachel and Blake weren't reviewing campaign materials. They were standing at his apartment window, clearly visible, embracing like lovers. I took photos with my phone, feeling sick to my stomach. This wasn't some emotional affair conducted through text messages. This was physical betrayal happening in full view. When Rachel came home that night, she seemed almost cheerful. "How was the meeting?" I asked. "Productive," she said, kissing my cheek like nothing had happened. "We got a lot accomplished." The casual way she lied to my face was almost worse than the cheating itself. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was calculated deception. That night, while Rachel slept beside me, I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I was going to gather enough evidence to protect myself and Asher when this all came crashing down. Because one thing was certain now, my marriage was over. The evidence gathering continued for 2 more weeks. I documented everything. Times, dates, locations, lies. Rachel's affair with Blake was undeniable, but I sensed there were more secrets lurking beneath the surface. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Rachel's sister Nicole. Nicole had always been the wild one in her family. Younger than Rachel by 5 years, she'd never quite settled down the way her older sister had. She worked as a freelance graphic designer, moved apartments every couple of years, and had a string of relationships that never seemed to last more than 6 months. She called me directly on a Tuesday afternoon, which was unusual. Normally, Nicole communicated with our family through Rachel. "Jack, can we meet for coffee?" she asked. "There's something I need to tell you, and it can't wait." My stomach dropped. "Is everything okay?" "No," Nicole said quietly. "It really isn't. We met at a small cafe downtown, away from anywhere Rachel might randomly show up." Nicole looked nervous, fidgeting with her coffee cup and avoiding eye contact. "I should have told you months ago," she began. "But I was scared, and I didn't know how, and I kept hoping it would just stop on its own." "Nicole, what are you talking about?" She took a deep breath. "Rachel's having an affair with Blake Morrison from her work." Hearing it confirmed by someone else hit differently than discovering it myself. "How long have you known?" "Since Christmas," Nicole admitted. "Rachel told me she was confused, that she was having feelings for someone at work. I told her she was being stupid, that she needed to work things out with you, or end her marriage properly. But she didn't listen." "Why are you telling me now?" I asked. Nicole's face turned red. "Because there's more. Something that makes it worse, and I can't keep it to myself anymore." I waited, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear whatever came next. Last month, when Rachel was out of town for that supposed business conference, Nicole continued, "She wasn't out of town. She was with Blake. And they used your house, Jack. They were together in your bedroom while you and Asher were at that soccer tournament." The coffee in my mouth suddenly tasted like poison. "In our house. I drove by to water Rachel's plants like she asked me to," Nicole said, tears starting. "Blake's car was in your driveway. I saw them through the kitchen window." The violation of having that man at my home, in my bedroom, was almost more than I could process. Bad enough that Rachel was cheating, but bringing him into the space where our family lived crossed every line imaginable. "There's one more thing," Nicole said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And this is why I had to tell you everything." I looked at her, waiting. "Blake's been recording them together. Rachel doesn't know. He showed me some messages on his phone, bragging about it. He's planning to use the recordings to blackmail her if she tries to end things." Now I understood why Nicole looked so terrified. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was a predator targeting my wife, and by extension, my family. "What kind of recordings?" I asked. "Videos," Nicole said. "Intimate videos. He's got hours of footage, Jack, and he's made it clear that if Rachel doesn't keep seeing him, he'll make sure everyone sees what they've been doing." I sat back in my chair, trying to process everything. My wife was cheating, the affair had contaminated my home, and now she was being blackmailed by her lover. "Nicole," I said finally, "I need you to tell me everything you know about Blake Morrison." Everything. After Nicole's revelations about Blake's blackmail scheme, I knew this situation was more dangerous than a simple affair. My wife was trapped by a predator who was using intimate recordings to control her. As her husband, I had a responsibility to protect her, even if she betrayed our marriage. I spent the weekend developing a strategy. Blake Morrison thought he held all the cards, but he'd underestimated what happens when you threaten a man's family. Monday morning, I call my lawyer friend Mike Stevens. We played poker together for years, and he specialized in criminal defense. Mike, I need advice about blackmail laws, I said. Jack, what kind of trouble are you in? Not me. Someone's threatening my family. Mike explained that recording someone without consent was illegal in our state. If Blake was videotaping Rachel without her knowledge, he was committing multiple felonies. The key is getting solid evidence, Mike advised. Without proof, it's just accusations. That evening, I approached Nicole with a proposal. I need you to set up a meeting with Blake, I told her. Tell him you want to see the recordings he bragged about. Nicole looked terrified. Jack, he's dangerous. What if he figures out what we're doing? He won't. You're just going to be a concerned sister asking questions. But I need you to record the conversation. I showed her the device Eric had given me. This will capture everything he says. When he admits to recording Rachel without consent, we'll have him. Nicole agreed reluctantly. The meeting was set for Wednesday at a downtown bar. That night, I finally told Asher that his mother and I were having serious problems. Are you getting divorced? He asked directly. I don't know yet, son. But I want you to understand that whatever happens between your mom and me, you're still our priority. Asher nodded. Dad, I already know about Blake. I saw them together last month at the mall. My blood ran cold. You saw them? Yeah, they were holding hands. I didn't tell you because I didn't know what to say. Even my 16-year-old son had been protecting me from the truth. Wednesday evening arrived. Nicole met Blake at Murphy's Tavern while I waited in the parking lot, monitoring everything through a phone app connected to the recording device. Through my earpiece, I heard Blake's voice clearly. Your sister's quite the performer, Blake said to Nicole. I've got hours of footage. She has no idea how thoroughly I've documented our relationship. That seems risky, Nicole replied. What if someone finds out? Blake laughed. Who's going to find out? Rachel certainly won't tell anyone. She's got too much to lose. And if she tries to leave me, well, let's just say Jack and their son would find out exactly what kind of woman she really is. I had him. Blake had just confessed to blackmail and illegal recording on tape. Armed with Blake's recorded confession, I was ready to end this nightmare. But first, I needed to confront Rachel about the full extent of her betrayal. Friday evening, after Asher went to his friend's house for the night, I sat Rachel down in our living room. We need to talk about Blake Morrison, I said. Rachel's face went pale. Jack, I can explain. No explanations. I know about the affair. I know about the videos. I know about the blackmail. She started crying immediately. How do you know about the videos? Nicole told me. She's been worried sick about you. Rachel buried her face in her hands. I'm so sorry, Jack. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. In our house. In our bedroom. She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. How long has he been recording you? I don't know. I found out 2 weeks ago when he showed me one of the videos. He said if I try to end things, he'd send copies to you, to Asher, to everyone at work. Why didn't you come to me then? Because I was ashamed. Because I'd already destroyed our marriage, and I didn't want to destroy our son's life too. I pulled out my phone and played Blake's recorded confession. Rachel listened in horror as her lover bragged about manipulating her. He's been using you, Rachel. This was never about love or romance. You were just entertainment. She was sobbing now. What are we going to do? We're going to end this. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call Blake and arrange one final meeting. But this time I'll be there. Jack, no. He's dangerous when he's angry. So am I replied. The difference is, I'm fighting for my family. He's just playing games. Rachel agreed to the plan. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at Blake's apartment. As I prepared for the confrontation, I thought about everything Blake had taken from my family. Our trust, our peace, our sense of security. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated what a husband and father would do to protect what mattered most. Tomorrow, Blake Morrison would learn that some men don't back down when their families are threatened. Saturday afternoon arrived like Judgment Day. Rachel had arranged to meet Blake at his apartment under the pretense of discussing their relationship. What Blake didn't know was that I'd be joining the conversation. I parked across the street and watched Rachel enter the building. She was wearing a recording device, and I had backup audio equipment in my truck. This confrontation would be documented from every angle. 10 minutes later, I walked into Blake's building and took the elevator to the third floor. His apartment door was slightly open, which told me Rachel had followed my instructions perfectly. I could hear Blake's voice from the hallway. "You're overreacting, Rachel. Your husband doesn't have any real proof of anything. He knows about the videos, Blake. He knows you've been recording me without permission. So what? Those recordings prove how much you wanted this relationship. If anything, they protect both of us." That was my cue. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Blake spun around, clearly shocked. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Having a conversation with a man who's been blackmailing my wife," I replied calmly. Blake tried to regain his composure. "I don't know what Rachel's told you, but she didn't tell me anything." "You did." I pulled out my phone and played his recorded confession from Wednesday night. Blake's face went white as he heard his own voice bragging about the videos. "That's a legal recording," he stammered. "So are the videos you made of my wife. The difference is I was recording someone in a public place who was openly discussing criminal activity. You were recording intimate moments without consent." Blake looked at Rachel desperately. "Tell him you wanted this. Tell him you love me." Rachel stood up straighter. "I was being manipulated by a predator. Jack, I want to go home." Blake's mask finally slipped completely. "You think you could just walk away? I have hours of footage of your wife. One phone call and everyone in this town sees what kind of woman she really is." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You don't." I pulled out a second phone and showed Blake the screen. It displayed his apartment security system, which my friend Eric had hacked earlier that morning. "While you were at work yesterday, we entered your apartment and copied your hard drives. Every video, every file, every backup, all of it is now in police custody." Blake's face turned red with rage. "You can't do that. That's breaking and entering." "Actually, the police did it. With a warrant. Based on evidence of blackmail and illegal recording." The sound of footsteps in the hallway made Blake freeze. Two uniformed officers appeared in his doorway. "Blake Morrison," one officer said, "you're under arrest for extortion and illegal surveillance." As they handcuffed Blake, he glared at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes," I replied. "It is." With Blake arrested, I thought the worst was behind us. I was wrong. 3 days later, Rachel received a call from Vernon Franklin, a lawyer claiming to represent Blake's interests. "Mrs. Sullivan, I think we should meet to discuss your husband's recent actions against my client." Rachel put the call on speaker so I could hear. "Mr. Morrison is facing serious criminal charges," Rachel replied. "I don't see what there is to discuss." "Actually, there's quite a bit to discuss. Your husband's vigilante behavior has created significant legal complications. Perhaps we could meet for coffee and find a mutually beneficial solution." After Rachel hung up, I called my lawyer friend Mike. "Something's not right about this Franklin guy," I told him. "Blake's been arrested for felonies. Why would his lawyer want to negotiate with the victims?" Mike agreed to investigate. What he discovered was disturbing. "Jack, Vernon Franklin isn't just Blake's lawyer. He's been Blake's partner in this blackmail scheme. We found evidence that Franklin has been helping Blake target married women for months." "What do you mean, partner?" "Franklin provides legal cover when things go wrong. He threatens victims with lawsuits, claims the recordings are legal, tries to silence people before they go to the police." This revelation changed everything. Blake wasn't just a predator acting alone. He was part of an organized operation targeting vulnerable women. "There's more," Mike continued. "Franklin has been calling other victims, trying to convince them not to testify against Blake. He's obstructing justice." That evening, Franklin called our house directly. "Mr. Sullivan, I think you're making a mistake pursuing this matter. Blake Morrison is a respected businessman with no prior criminal record. Your wife, on the other hand, willingly participated in an extramarital relationship." "Are you threatening my family?" I asked. "I'm offering you an opportunity to resolve this quietly. Drop the charges, and we'll ensure the videos never surface publicly." "You mean the videos that are already in police custody?" Franklin paused. "There may be additional copies that haven't been discovered yet." "Mr. Franklin, you just confessed to withholding evidence in a criminal investigation. This conversation is being recorded." The line went dead immediately. Mike contacted the prosecutor's office the next morning. Within hours, Vernon Franklin was arrested for obstruction of justice and conspiracy to commit extortion. "How did you know to record that call?" Rachel asked me later. "Because predators like Blake and Franklin rely on intimidating their victims. They count on people being too scared or ashamed to fight back. And you're not scared. Terrified, I admitted. But I'm more terrified of what happens to our family if we let people like them win. With Blake and Vernon Franklin both facing criminal charges, I thought our family could finally begin healing. But Rachel's betrayal had created wounds that wouldn't close easily. What happens to us now? Rachel asked one evening after Asher had gone to bed. I don't know. I answered honestly. Trust isn't something you can just rebuild overnight. But you're willing to try. I studied her face, looking for the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. Are you? Because try means complete honesty from now on. No more secrets. No more lies. No matter how painful the truth might be. Rachel nodded. I want to try. I want to be the wife and mother you both deserve. Then we start with counseling, both individual and couples therapy. And you find a new job, away from any environment that reminds us of Blake. I already submitted my resignation, she said. I can't stay there after everything that happened. Over the next few weeks, we began the slow process of rebuilding. Rachel started seeing a therapist to understand why she'd been vulnerable to Blake's manipulation. I worked with my own counselor to process the anger and betrayal I felt. Asher surprised me with his maturity through the whole situation. Dad, are you and Mom going to be okay? He asked one Saturday morning. We're going to try, son. It won't be easy, and it might not work, but we're committed to trying. Good. Because I don't want our family to fall apart, because one guy was a predator. Smart kid. He understood that Blake had been the real enemy, not his mother's weakness. Nicole proved invaluable during our recovery. She helped Rachel understand how she'd been targeted and manipulated, while also supporting my need for complete transparency going forward. Blake chose Rachel specifically because she was vulnerable, Nicole explained during one family dinner. He studies married women, finds their weak spots, and exploits them. Rachel wasn't his first victim. The trial proceedings confirmed this. Blake and Franklin had targeted at least 6 other married women over 2 years. Their operation was systematic, predatory, and cruel. How many families did they destroy? Rachel asked after reading the court documents. Too many, I replied, but they won't destroy any more. 6 months later, Blake was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Franklin received 3 years and was disbarred. Justice had been served, but the real work was happening at home. Rachel and I attended counseling twice a week. We learned to communicate honestly about our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. It wasn't easy, but slowly, we began to reconnect. I love you, Jack, Rachel said one evening as we watched the sunset from our back porch. I know I broke that love, but I want to earn it back. You're earning it every day, I replied. By being honest, by doing the work, by showing Asher and me that we matter more than anything else. Our marriage would never be the same as it was before Blake Morrison entered our lives. But maybe that wasn't entirely a bad thing. We were building something stronger now, something based on truth instead of assumptions. 1 year later, our family had found a new normal. Rachel's new job at a nonprofit organization gave her purpose without the corporate pressures that had made her vulnerable before. Asher was thriving as a senior in high school, having learned valuable lessons about honesty and resilience from watching his parents work through their crisis. The delivery business continued to grow, and I'd expanded into catering services. Success felt different now, more meaningful, because it was built on a foundation of truth rather than assumptions. Dad, I got accepted to State University, Asher announced one spring evening, waving his acceptance letter. That's fantastic, son. I grabbed him in a bear hug. Your mom and I are so proud of you. Rachel beamed with genuine joy. We need to celebrate. How about dinner at Antonio's? I raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? Last time we went there, things got pretty intense. Exactly, Rachel said. It's time we made some better memories there. The dinner was perfect. No hidden phones, no secret messages, no lies lurking beneath the surface. Just a family celebrating their son's achievement and their own survival. You know what I realized? Rachel said as we shared dessert. I spent so much time looking for excitement outside our marriage that I missed the real excitement happening right here. What do you mean? Watching Asher grow up, seeing your business succeed, being part of a team that actually works together. That's the real adventure. Nicole joined us for coffee afterward, having become an integral part of our family's healing process. I'm proud of both of you. she told us. A year ago, I thought this family was over. But you proved that some things are worth fighting for. As we drove home, Asher spoke up from the back seat. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. How did you know Mom was worth saving? After everything that happened, how did you know she was still the person you married? I glanced at Rachel, who was listening intently. Because underneath all the lies and mistakes, she was still the woman who made me coffee every morning for 18 years. She was still the mother who never missed one of your soccer games. She was still the person who believed in my dreams when I was just a guy with an old Honda delivering Chinese food. The real Rachel never went anywhere, I continued. She just got lost for a while. And sometimes, when someone you love gets lost, your job is to help them find their way home. 3 months later, we renewed our wedding vows in a small ceremony with just our closest family and friends. It wasn't about erasing the past or pretending the pain hadn't happened. It was about choosing each other again, with full knowledge of our flaws and full commitment to doing better. As I looked at Rachel in her simple white dress, I saw not just my wife, but a woman who'd fought her way back to herself and to us. That was worth celebrating. Blake Morrison had tried to destroy our family with lies and manipulation. Instead, he taught us the value of truth and the strength that comes from facing problems together. We were stronger now than we'd ever been before.